The laughter started quietly, then grew louder. I sat at my mother-in-law's dining table, watching 20 family members stare at me like I was some kind of circus act. My wife Caroline had just finished her performance. "Everyone, listen to this," she had announced, holding up her wine glass. "Williams here thinks he's going to make it big with his little delivery business. Tell them about your grand plan, honey." The words hit me like ice water. This wasn't playful teasing between spouses. This was calculated cruelty. She knew exactly what she was doing. "Caroline, please," I said quietly, trying to stop what was coming. But she wasn't done. "He drives around town in his beat-up Honda, delivering groceries to old ladies. 28 years old, and this is his big entrepreneurial dream. Isn't that just pathetic?" Her mother Eleanor chimed in with a sharp laugh. "Oh Caroline, you're terrible. But honestly, Williams, when are you going to get serious about your future?" The room erupted in laughter. Cousins, uncles, aunts, everyone found my humiliation hilarious. That's when I realized something had broken inside me forever. I'd never forgive this moment. I excused myself to the bathroom and stared at my reflection in the mirror. My hands were shaking. Not from anger, but from something deeper. Shame mixed with a hurt I'd never felt before. Caroline was supposed to be my partner. My wife of 3 years. The person who knew that my delivery service meant everything to me. I'd been working 14-hour days, building something from nothing. Every dollar earned was reinvested back into the business. She knew I dreamed of expanding. She knew I stayed up nights planning routes and calculating profits. She knew I believed in what I was building. And she chose to destroy it in front of our entire family. The worst part wasn't the laughter. It was seeing her face during the performance. She was enjoying it. This wasn't a slip of the tongue or a joke gone wrong. She had planned this. I splashed cold water on my face and made a decision. Caroline wanted to play games about success and failure? About who mattered and who didn't? Fine. But she had no idea what she'd just started. I walked back to that dining room with a smile on my face. Let her think she'd won. The ride home was silent. Caroline hummed along to the radio like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't just humiliated her husband in front of 20 people. Like destroying someone's confidence was just another Tuesday evening activity. "Did you have a good time tonight?" she finally asked as we pulled into our driveway. I looked at her carefully. "Did you?" She laughed. "Oh, come on. Don't be so sensitive. Everyone was just having fun. At my expense." "Williams, you're being dramatic. Look, I love you, but someone needs to tell you the truth. This delivery thing isn't going anywhere. You're wasting time that could be spent on a real career." I opened my mouth to argue, then stopped. What was the point? She'd already made her position clear. "You'll never be in my league," she continued, warming up to her theme. "My company actually matters. We're talking about real business here, not driving around with grocery bags." That's when something clicked. Caroline worked for her family's business. Hartwell Industries. A company that had been passed down through 3 generations. A company she treated like her personal kingdom. But what if her kingdom wasn't as untouchable as she thought? That night, while Caroline slept, I sat at my laptop researching Hartwell Industries. What I found surprised me. The company wasn't just some small family business. They were publicly traded. They had shareholders. They had a board of directors. They had stock I could actually buy. I spent hours reading financial reports, studying their business model and learning about their leadership structure. Caroline held a vice president position, but her real power came from being Eleanor's daughter and the expected heir to the family business. For the first time since dinner, I felt something other than anger. I felt possibility. The stock was trading at $42 per share. Not cheap, but not impossible either. I calculated my savings account balance. I could afford maybe 50 shares to start. It wasn't much, but it was something. I created an online trading account and made my first purchase. 50 shares of Hartwell Industries. $2,000 of my hard-earned delivery money, now converted into tiny pieces of my wife's family empire. The confirmation email felt like a small victory. For the first time in hours, I smiled. Caroline thought I was powerless. She was about to learn otherwise. The next morning, Caroline found me at the kitchen table with coffee and my laptop. She was already dressed for work in her expensive suit, the one that cost more than I made in 2 weeks. Still playing on the computer, she asked, not looking up from her phone. Just checking some things. She poured herself coffee and stood behind my chair. I quickly closed the browser tab showing my new stock portfolio. You know what you should be checking? Job listings. Real jobs, Williams. My cousin Troy works in insurance now. He makes 6 figures. I nodded and said nothing. Let her think she was giving me wise advice. I have to go. Board meeting today. We're discussing quarterly projections. She paused at the door. Try to do something productive today, okay? After she left, I opened my trading account again. 50 shares. It wasn't much, but seeing Hartwell Industries in my portfolio felt powerful. Like I was finally fighting back instead of just taking hits. I spent the morning reading everything I could find about shareholder rights and corporate governance. If I was going to play this game, I needed to understand the rules. The education was just beginning. Sunday dinner at Eleanor's house had become a monthly tradition I'd grown to dread. This time was worse. Caroline had apparently shared the story of my entrepreneurial delusions with more family members. Eleanor greeted me at the door with a patronizing smile. Williams, dear, Caroline told me you're finally considering a real job. Good for you. During dinner, the conversation kept circling back to my future. Caroline's uncle Frederick, who owned a car dealership, offered to put in a good word for a sales position. Her Aunt Martha suggested I consider going back to school. The thing is, Caroline announced to the table, Williams has these grand ideas, but no practical business sense. Right, honey? Eleanor nodded knowingly. Caroline married beneath her station, but we've always supported the relationship. Some men just need more guidance than others. I smiled and thanked them for their concern. Inside, I was calculating. Every insult was motivation. Every dismissive comment was fuel for what I was building. They had no idea that every extra delivery run I made, every weekend shift I picked up, every dollar I squeezed from my budget was going straight into buying pieces of their precious company. Their mockery was literally funding my revenge. The next 2 months became a blur of work and sacrifice. I took every delivery job available. I drove for 3 different apps. I picked up weekend catering gigs. I sold everything I didn't absolutely need. Caroline noticed the increased activity but misunderstood it completely. Finally taking our conversation seriously, she told her friend Melissa during a phone call I overheard. He's working like crazy now. Maybe he'll amount to something after all. She had no idea that every dollar was being reinvested. Not into expanding my delivery business, but into buying more shares of Hartwell Industries. 50 shares became 100. 100 became 200. I learned to read financial statements. I studied market trends. I joined online forums where small investors shared strategies. The community was supportive in ways my own family wasn't. My portfolio grew slowly but steadily. More importantly, I was learning about corporate governance, about shareholder rights, about how family businesses operated and where their vulnerabilities might lie. Caroline saw a desperate man working harder to please her. She didn't see a strategic mind preparing for war. The irony was perfect. Her cruelty was creating the very enemy she never saw coming. 3 months after that first humiliating dinner, I overheard Caroline on a work call that changed everything. She was pacing in our bedroom, voice stressed in a way I'd never heard before. "No, Mother, the Henry contract falling through is a big problem. That was supposed to be 12% of our quarterly revenue." She paused, listening. "I know the board is asking questions. Some of the outside directors are getting pushy about our growth strategy. They think we're too conservative." Outside directors. Non-family board members. People who might not automatically support whatever Eleanor and Caroline wanted. "Well, maybe it's time we reminded them who really runs this company," Caroline continued. "Family unity has always been our strength." After she hung up, I casually asked about her day. "Oh, just some minor business issues. Nothing that concerns you." But it did concern me. More than she could possibly know. Because somewhere in those minor business issues was an opportunity. Cracks in their perfect family empire where a determined outsider might find leverage. I spent that evening researching the Henry contract and what its loss might mean for Hartwell Industries' stock price. The online forums became my secret classroom. I discovered an entire community of Hartwell Industries minority shareholders who felt ignored by the family-controlled board. People who owned small stakes but had legitimate concerns about the company's direction. A user named Small But Mighty posted regularly about wanting more transparency in executive compensation. Another investor, Value Seeker, questioned why the company hadn't pursued obvious expansion opportunities. I began participating carefully, sharing insights from my research without revealing who I was. These people weren't just random investors. They were frustrated business owners, retired executives, and financial professionals who'd grown tired of being treated like silent partners. "The Hartwells act like they're doing us a favor by letting us own shares," Value Seeker wrote. "But they forget we're the ones actually funding their salaries." Small But Mighty responded, "If enough minority shareholders coordinated, we could actually influence some decisions. But getting organized is the challenge." I stared at that comment for a long time. Getting organized. That was exactly what needed to happen. And maybe, with the right person coordinating things, it could. Someone who understood the company's weaknesses. Someone with motivation beyond just financial returns. Someone like me. Caroline's company Christmas party was held at the downtown Marriott. She'd bought a new dress for the occasion and spent an hour on her makeup. This was her chance to shine in front of the business community. I wore my best suit, which looked cheap next to everyone else's attire. But I didn't care about fitting in anymore. I was there to observe and learn. The party was exactly what I'd expected. Hartwell Industries employees mingling with local business leaders, everyone trying to impress everyone else. Caroline introduced me around as my husband Williams, without mentioning what I did for work. Then came the moment that sealed my resolve. We were standing with a group of her colleagues when someone asked about my career. Before I could answer, Caroline jumped in. "Oh, Williams is still figuring things out. He's got all these little entrepreneurial ideas, but you know how that goes. Right now he's doing delivery work while he finds his path." The group nodded politely, but I saw the looks. The barely concealed pity. The quick subject changes. Caroline beamed, proud of how diplomatically she'd handled the awkward question about her underachieving husband. That night, I transferred another $5,000 into my trading account. By spring, my holdings had reached 800 shares. The sleepless nights were worth it. Every sacrifice, every exhausting day, every moment of being treated like Caroline's charity case was building towards something bigger. I'd mapped out the entire shareholding structure of Hartwell Industries. The family controlled roughly 60% of the stock. Eleanor held the largest individual stake at 25%. Caroline owned 8%, a gift from her grandmother. But 40% of the company belonged to outside investors. And based on my forum research, many of them were unhappy with the current leadership. The stock price had dropped 12% since the Henry contract fell through. The board was asking harder questions about the company's strategic direction. Eleanor's conservative approach was starting to look outdated to investors who wanted growth. My 800 shares weren't enough to influence anything major, but they were enough to get me into shareholder meetings. Enough to have a voice, however small. The transformation was complete. I wasn't just Caroline's embarrassing husband anymore. I was a Hartwell Industries shareholder with legal rights and legitimate business concerns. She still saw the delivery driver. I saw myself as an emerging threat to her comfortable world. The annual shareholder meeting was held in a conference room at the company headquarters. I arrived early, dressed in my best business attire, carrying a folder of carefully prepared notes. Caroline was there, of course, sitting at the front table with Eleanor and other family members. She didn't notice me in the back row, just another face among 30 or 40 attendees. Eleanor presented the annual report with the confidence of someone who'd never been seriously challenged. The numbers were respectable but not impressive. Growth was minimal. Innovation was practically non-existent. During the Q&A session, I listened to other shareholders voice concerns about missed opportunities and conservative strategies. Eleanor deflected most questions with vague promises about maintaining our strong foundation. I didn't speak up. Not yet. But I took detailed notes about who asked what questions and how the family responded. I was building a map of allies and opposition points. After the meeting, I lingered near the exit, overhearing conversations. Several shareholders expressed frustration privately. "Same old story every year," one man muttered. "They treat this like their personal piggy bank." Caroline swept past me without recognition, deep in conversation with her uncle about maintaining shareholder confidence. She had no idea one of those shareholders was planning her downfall. That evening, Caroline came home energized from the shareholder meeting. She'd given a presentation about new marketing initiatives and felt it had gone well. The shareholders seemed engaged, she told me over dinner. Though some of them ask such pointless questions. They don't understand how family businesses actually work. I made sympathetic noises while internally cataloging every detail she shared. She was unknowingly giving me intelligence about the family's internal thinking. "Mother says we might need to make some changes to keep the outside investors happy. Maybe bring in a consultant or something. But honestly, they're just impatient. Our approach has worked for 50 years. After dinner, I went to my computer and began drafting a comprehensive analysis of Hartwell Industries' strategic weaknesses. Poor digital marketing. Missed expansion opportunities. Lack of innovation in their core business lines. I'd been studying this company for months now. I probably understood their vulnerabilities better than most board members. Certainly better than Caroline, who'd never had to analyze the business objectively. The irony was delicious. While she dismissed me as someone who didn't understand real business, I was becoming an expert on her family's specific business. Knowledge was becoming power. And power was about to become justice. My breakthrough came through Value Seeker from the online forums. His real name was Paul Brennan, a retired executive who owned 3,000 shares of Hartwell Industries stock. He'd been growing increasingly frustrated with the company's performance. We started communicating privately about organizing dissatisfied shareholders. Paul had connections I lacked: other investors, former employees, industry contacts who understood the company's potential. "The Hartwells are coasting on their reputation," Paul explained during our first phone call. "But reputation doesn't create shareholder value. We need leadership that's willing to take calculated risks." Paul introduced me to Sandra Wu, a venture capitalist who owned 1,500 shares. Sandra brought in Seth Donald, who represented an investment fund with 5,000 shares. Slowly, carefully, we built a coalition. Not enough to outvote the family completely, but enough to demand real attention at board meetings. Enough to ask uncomfortable questions and force transparent answers. I never revealed my personal connection to Caroline. As far as they knew, I was just another concerned investor who'd done exceptional research on the company's weaknesses. The coalition grew to represent nearly 20,000 shares. Still a minority position, but a significant one. Large enough to influence major decisions if we voted as a bloc. Living a double life was exhausting but exhilarating. During the day, I was Caroline's hardworking but unremarkable husband, still running deliveries and building my small business. During the evening, I was strategizing with successful investors about corporate governance and market positioning. Caroline noticed changes in my confidence but attributed them to finally getting serious about my career. She started treating me slightly better, like a project that was finally showing progress. "You seem different lately," she said one night. "More focused. I'm proud of you for working so hard." If only she knew what I was really focused on. The contrast between my two worlds was becoming surreal. At family dinners, Eleanor would make jokes about my little delivery business, while I secretly owned more of her company than some board members. Caroline would lecture me about ambition while I was organizing a shareholder rebellion against her leadership. The secrecy was necessary, but it was also becoming addictive. Every patronizing comment just fueled my determination. Every dismissive laugh reminded me why I was doing this. They wanted to see me as powerless? Perfect. Let them keep underestimating the enemy they'd created. The moment of truth arrived at Eleanor's 4th of July barbecue. The entire extended family was there, plus business associates and neighbors. It was Caroline's favorite kind of event, a chance to show off her success and status. During dinner, the conversation turned to business and politics. Eleanor was holding court, discussing Hartwell Industries' performance with the confidence of someone who'd never faced real opposition. "Family businesses have advantages that corporations can't match," she was saying. "Stability, long-term thinking, purse. Why attention to this? Maybe someday you'll understand how real businesses operate." The laughter started again. The same dismissive chuckles I'd heard 8 months earlier. But this time, something was different. This time, I had power they couldn't see. I set down my fork and looked directly at Eleanor. "Actually, I understand your business quite well. Probably better than you think." The table went quiet. Caroline looked confused. "What's that supposed to mean?" Eleanor asked. "It means I'm actually one of your largest individual shareholders now. And I have some concerns about the company's direction." The silence was complete. 20 people staring at me like I just announced I was from another planet. Caroline's face went through several expressions: confusion, disbelief, then something approaching panic. "That's not possible," Eleanor said finally. "We would know if someone was accumulating a significant position." I pulled out my phone and opened my portfolio app. 850 shares as of this morning. Plus I represent a coalition of minority shareholders who collectively own about 20,000 shares. Caroline grabbed my phone, staring at the screen. "This can't be real. Where did you get money for this? Every delivery run. Every weekend shift. Every dollar you thought I was wasting on my pathetic little business." I looked around the table. "Turns out all that hard work you've been mocking actually paid off." Eleanor's face had gone pale. "What coalition?" "Investors who are tired of watching this company underperform because the leadership is more interested in maintaining control than creating value." Uncle Frederick leaned forward. "Williams, what exactly are you trying to do here?" For the first time in months, I felt completely honest. "I'm trying to save this company from people who think they're entitled to run it just because of their last name." The explosion of angry voices was immediate and satisfying. The drive home was arctic. Caroline sat in the passenger seat, staring straight ahead, her jaw set in a way I'd never seen before. When we pulled into our driveway, she finally spoke. "How long have you been planning this?" "Since the night you decided to humiliate me in front of your entire family." She turned to face me. "You've been lying to me for months. Secretly buying stock in my family's company. Organizing some kind of corporate attack. Do you understand how insane this is? What's insane is thinking you could treat me like garbage and face no consequences." Caroline's voice rose. "I never treated you like garbage. I was trying to help you see reality. Your delivery business isn't going anywhere, Williams. It's time to grow up." "Grow up?" I laughed. "I just told your mother that I've organized 20,000 shares worth of opposition to her leadership. I've spent 8 months studying every weakness in your family's business model. I've built relationships with serious investors who respect my analysis. But sure, Caroline. I need to grow up." She stared at me like she'd never seen me before. "Who are you?" "I'm the man you married. You just never bothered to find out what I was capable of when properly motivated." Word of my revelation spread through the family network faster than I'd expected. By Monday morning, my phone was ringing constantly. Eleanor called 3 times. Caroline's cousin Troy left angry voicemails. Even Frederick tried to reach me. I ignored them all. Let them panic for a while. Let them understand what it felt like to have someone else controlling the narrative. Caroline left for work without speaking to me. She came home that evening with red eyes and a folder full of legal documents. "Mother wants to buy your shares back," she announced. "Premium price. 20% above market value." "Not interested." "Williams, be reasonable. You've made your point. You've gotten everyone's attention. Take the money and let's move on." I studied the offer documents. Eleanor was scared enough to overpay significantly for my shares. That meant my coalition was being taken seriously at the highest levels. What about the other shareholders in my coalition? Is Eleanor planning to buy out all 20,000 shares? Caroline slumped into a chair. "I don't know. Probably not. She's hoping that removing you will cause the group to fall apart. Then she doesn't understand how this works. I'm not the leader of this coalition, Caroline. I'm just the organizer. These people have legitimate concerns that existed long before I came along." The emergency board meeting was called for Friday morning. As a shareholder owning more than 500 shares, I had the right to attend and observe. Caroline tried one last time to talk me out of it. "Please don't do this," she said Thursday night. "Whatever problems you have with me, don't take them out on my family's company. This isn't about taking anything out on anyone. This is about corporate governance and fiduciary responsibility to shareholders. Stop talking like a business textbook. This is personal and you know it." She was right, of course. But she was also wrong. What had started as personal revenge had evolved into something bigger. I'd spent months learning about this company, talking to frustrated investors, identifying real problems that needed real solutions. "You're right that it started personal," I admitted. "But it's not personal anymore. Your family's company has serious strategic problems, and the current leadership is too proud or too scared to address them." Caroline was crying now. "They'll fire me. Do you understand that? If you succeed in whatever you're planning, I'll lose my job. Maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to destroy your husband's confidence in front of 20 people." Friday morning, I walked into that boardroom wearing my best suit and carrying 8 months' worth of research and preparation. The conference room fell silent when I entered. Eleanor sat at the head of the table, flanked by family members and longtime business associates. Caroline was there, looking like she hadn't slept. I took a seat in the observer section, opened my notebook, and waited. Eleanor called the meeting to order and immediately addressed my presence. Before we begin regular business, I want to discuss a concerning development regarding hostile shareholder activity. Point of order, I said calmly. There's nothing hostile about shareholders exercising their legal rights to evaluate company performance and leadership. Board member Moses Wells, who wasn't family, looked interested. Mr. Patterson, you represent a significant minority position. What exactly are your concerns? I stood and distributed copies of my analysis. Declining market share in core business lines. Missed opportunities for digital transformation. Conservative capital allocation that's destroying shareholder value. And leadership that seems more interested in maintaining family control than maximizing returns. The room erupted. Eleanor demanded to know where I'd gotten confidential information. Caroline accused me of corporate espionage. Uncle Frederick called the whole thing a betrayal of trust. But Moses Wells and two other non-family board members were reading my report carefully. Their faces showed recognition of problems they'd probably noticed themselves. Mrs. Hartwell, Moses said to Eleanor, these concerns deserve formal response. What followed was the most intense business discussion I'd ever witnessed. Paul Brennan, Sandra Wu, and Seth Donald joined by video conference to represent the shareholder coalition. Together, we presented a comprehensive case for leadership changes. The family fought back hard. Eleanor cited 50 years of stable growth. Caroline presented her marketing initiatives. Frederick argued that family businesses required patience and long-term thinking. But the non-family board members weren't buying it anymore. Too many missed opportunities. Too much resistance to necessary changes. Too little accountability to shareholders who weren't named Hartwell. Moses Wells called for a formal vote of confidence in current executive leadership. All those in favor of maintaining current executive structure? Eleanor, Caroline, Frederick, and two family loyalists raised their hands. 5 votes. All those opposed? Moses, Sandra Reese, and William Foster raised their hands. Then, after a long pause, longtime board member Dorothy Kim joined them. 4 votes. Motion fails, Moses announced. Current leadership maintains board support, but barely. I recommend we schedule quarterly reviews going forward. It wasn't the complete victory I'd wanted, but it was enough. Caroline's position was no longer secure. Eleanor's authority had been publicly challenged. The family's control was now dependent on keeping outside board members satisfied. The aftermath unfolded exactly as I'd expected. Within a week, Caroline was reassigned to a non-executive role focusing on special projects. Eleanor remained CEO but with significantly reduced autonomy. The board established new oversight committees with non-family leadership. Caroline came home that Friday evening and found me packing a suitcase. Where are you going? I rented an apartment downtown. I think we both need some space to figure out what comes next. She sat on the bed, watching me fold clothes. You destroyed everything, you know that? My career, my family's business, our marriage. Was your revenge really worth all that? I stopped packing and looked at her. Caroline, I didn't destroy anything. I just refused to let you destroy me without consequences. I never tried to destroy you. You humiliated me in front of our entire family. You dismissed my work, my dreams, my worth as a person. You made me feel like nothing. I closed the suitcase. I just returned the favor. So this is it? 8 months of lies and manipulation, and now you're leaving? I never lied to you. I just stopped sharing information with someone who used it to hurt me. I picked up my bag. And I'm not leaving permanently. I'm creating space for both of us to decide if this marriage can be saved. 6 months later, I received a text from Caroline asking to meet for coffee. She looked different, less polished, more uncertain. The arrogance that had defined her was gone. "The company's doing better," she said after we sat down. "Moses has been making changes. Digital marketing, new partnerships. Things you suggested in your report. Good. That was always the point. I got a job with a consulting firm downtown. It's good work. Challenging." She paused. I had to start over completely, but maybe that wasn't a bad thing. We talked for an hour about neutral topics. Work, mutual friends, the weather. Neither of us mentioned the possibility of reconciliation. As we were leaving, Caroline touched my arm. "I'm sorry. For what I said that night, for how I treated you. I was wrong. Thank you for saying that. Do you think we could ever, would you consider trying again?" I thought about the question seriously. "I don't know. Trust takes time to rebuild." "I understand." She smiled sadly. "For what it's worth, I respect what you accomplished. What you became. I just wish I'd seen it before I forced you to prove it." We parted ways in the parking lot. I didn't know if I'd ever be ready to trust Caroline again. But I knew I'd never again let anyone make me feel powerless. Today, I own 1,200 shares of Hartwell Industries stock. The coalition I helped organize has grown to represent nearly 30% of outstanding shares. The company's performance has improved dramatically under new leadership that actually listens to stakeholder concerns. My delivery business has expanded into a regional logistics company with 15 employees. Caroline's mockery about my little entrepreneurial ideas seems like ancient history now. Sometimes people ask if I regret how everything unfolded. If I wish I'd handled the situation differently. The answer is complicated. I regret that my marriage ended. I regret that Caroline had to lose her position for the company to improve. I regret that revenge was necessary to earn basic respect. But I don't regret fighting back. I don't regret refusing to accept humiliation as my permanent role in life. And I definitely don't regret proving that the pathetic delivery boy could master corporate finance when properly motivated. Caroline was right about one thing: I did need to understand how real businesses operate. I just needed to learn it my own way, in my own time, for my own reasons. She mocked my side job. So I made it my empire. And in the process, I discovered something more valuable than revenge. I learned what I was actually capable of when someone tried to destroy me.